Hey guys, Danny Johnson here, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the basics on the tires and what's on the sidewall and what you need to know. So at the beginning you may see some letters like LT for light truck or P for passenger vehicle, and then after that you're going to get into 3 digits. These 3 digits are the width of the tire in millimeters, so this would be 275 millimeters wide. Okay, this next part usually confuses people because it's a percentage. And what this is telling you is how tall the sidewall is in a percentage to how wide the tire is. So I decided to illustrate this just to show you an example. And if you were to measure the sidewall height, this is in inches, you're looking at about 6.5 inches tall. Now, if you're able to measure the actual width of the tire, it's coming out pretty much 10 inches. So some quick math, 6.5 inches out of 10 inches is your 65% that's on the sidewall. Next, you have an R, which stands for radial, and then the last 2 digits are the inches that the rim is, so it's an 18-inch wheel. And on some tires, which we'll get into later, you'll see a speed rating. So on this one, look before the R, it has a Z for being a Z-rated speed tire. So here's a chart of the speed ratings, and you can see it's somewhat alphabetical as it works its way down, but it's not exactly alphabetical. But the higher you go, the higher the speed rating is. And so when you get to Z, that was supposed to be the highest rating that they had, and since then, they've had to go back and change it to not only Z, but in addition, a W and a Y. Now, believe it or not, the speed rating of the tire is one of the main reasons they put the speed limiters on cars. So part of it's the liability of obviously going fast, but part of the liability comes with the speed rating of the tire. And so on my 1997 Mustang V6, for example, it had a speed limiter at 115 miles an hour. The car could easily do more than that. The GTs and later on Cobras and other cars could go 155, no problem. And so the main concern was the tires that were installed on the car at the factory were not Z-rated. So a lot of times the speed limiters can be put on cars solely because of the tires the car will be sold with. And so you can see on the V6 Mustang for insurance and this purpose, it only reads 120 miles an hour on the gauges. So next I want to talk a little bit about tread wear, which is basically the wear rate of the tire. And so here's a standard tire that came factory on the car, and you're looking in the 220 range is kind of normal. Now, a 200 tread wear tire in theory, should be able to last twice as long as a 100 tread wear. And some of this has to do with the durability or the firmness of the tire. A more firm tire should last longer. It's not always the case. Here's one at 320, so just a little bit above factory. And each company can basically rate this themselves, so the numbers can vary. Here's an Amazon tire, Milestar, that's on my brother's car, and if you look at the tread wear there, it's all the way up into the 540s. So that tire should last 5 times longer than a 100 tire. And you might be amazed if you look on the Yukon's 22-inch wheels, 800 is the tread wear on that. So it should last 8 times longer than a 100 tread wear tire. Now I'm really going to blow your mind here. We're going to look at a pair of drag radials. So these are similar to slicks. They're super soft. They're meant for traction only, and if you look here, the tread wear on these is 000, okay? So that means that these tires are so soft in order to get traction and heat up and basically melt that you could scratch them with your fingernail. You could probably dig your way through this tire, they're soft enough. And so once again, how hard the tire is doesn't exactly equate to the tread wear, but this is a pretty good example of how the softer tires are the ones that have less tread wear. Now, a soft tire like this is designed to basically heat up, melt, and give you traction. It's not designed for high speeds, and it's not going to hold up very well at a high speed. You can see these also would normally wear out so fast you probably wouldn't even get about 5,000 miles out of them. I just don't put a lot of miles on this car, so that's why they've lasted so long. But if you look at the numbers here too, you'll see that it doesn't have the Z rating, so it's not meant for high speed, and the temperature and traction are C grade. So traction and temperature are both measured on an A, B, and C scale, and so traction would be how well the tire did on wet ground, and then the temperature is how well the tire can dissipate heat once it's moving more at the top end. So this tire would do really well at the track, going from 0 to a maximum of 130 or so, but you would not want this if you were tearing it up on the Autobahn doing over 120 constantly, or on wet pavement for that matter. Now something else I want to cover is putting the right size tire on the right size rim. Now if you look at the size of this tire, it's a 275 40R17. This car actually calls for a 245 in the width. And so you can see somebody stuck a wider wheel on here, and it actually happens to be the size that the Cobra calls for. And the Cobra is a 17 by 9, this is a 17 by 8 inch wheel. And you can see how the tire kind of hourglasses. And it's just not the right size tire for the rim. Will it go on? Yes. Will it fit? Okay. But guess what? You actually will not get the proper wear out of this tire or the proper performance. In order to get this tire to pretty much sit flat, you'd have to have it pretty well deflated. So maybe that'll work for you, but if it's not a drag radial tire, it's not going to be giving you the kind of traction you want, and it actually would be unsafe because you have a deflated tire flopping around. When I first got my Cobra, it had Nitto 555R drag radials, and they were 315 millimeters wide. And that's not what the wheel calls for. And I actually got better traction and a better footprint going back to the smaller standard size of a 275 millimeter wide tire. And the car hooks up pretty well. I do run this tire a little bit underinflated, about 25 to 30 psi to get traction with 600 horsepower. Now, a lot of the light truck and trailer tires are going to have a load index written behind the number here. So you'll see this one is 113-110. And so what that means is the 113 and the 110 correspond to the weights that each tire can hold. And you'll notice that it will have a second weight listed, and you need to go off of the second lower weight in the event that one of the tires blows out if you're running duals, and you still need to support the vehicle with at least one tire. So that's why the load rating for 2 tires is less than 1. So next we're going to talk about the manufacture date and where it's located on the tires. You're going to find a 4-digit code on the sidewall, usually right after where it says DOT. And so the first 2 digits represent the week that they were made, and the last 2 is the year. So for example, these were made the 50th week of 2017. These ones that I had just put on my Yukon were recently made the 19th week of 2019. So you can see they're pretty new. And then here's an example of some older ones. And so if you look here, it's going to be the 38th week of 2014. So it's really important to know the date, to know how long the tires are going to last. You can usually see some dry rotting or some problems. But sometimes you want to know this if you're buying used tires, if you're buying a used car, or if you just want to know how long the wheels have been on your car. So there's a lot more to cover about tires. This is just kind of the beginning. So thanks for watching, and make sure you read up on tires. They're really important. You ride on them every day, and you rely on them to keep you safe. And so I'll put some links in the description of where I got a lot of the information so you can continue to study up on it. Thanks for watching.